Hello. It is an absolute delight and our pleasure to welcome a distinguished group of judges and jurists from the United States of America. These are judges and jurists representing different courts in the U.S. We also have a very distinguished academic who's the dean of the University of Hawaii School of Law. What I hope to do in the next 15-20 minutes is to reflect on the larger theme of the future of legal education and legal profession in democracies. So my question to our distinguished judges, and I will name them as we begin this conversation, to talk a bit about their own journey in legal education and how they believe legal education and legal profession has changed from their own times, but also to look at the future, some form of blue sky thinking about the future, especially given the numerous changes that are happening in the role of law and its impact on societies. So let me begin by inviting Mr. Justice Michael Wilson, former judge, Supreme Court of Hawaii, to reflect on this question.
Well, thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. It is a privilege to be here from Hawaii. So my comments about the future of legal education are shaped by the state that I come from, and it is a small state in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's affected by international events. So from the point of view of legal education in the future, our hope in Hawaii is it would be more international, and it would address some emerging issues that are new, and it will also shape the future for young people in particular, one of which is artificial intelligence. And whatever legal education takes place in the future needs to address the kind of stresses that are going to take place if you believe in the rule of law and the idea of it being undermined by the effects of artificial intelligence. The other thing is we have a new institution, we have a new participation in global governance that I think does need to have a focus in terms of future education, and that has to do with the corporate community that's become so powerful that they're a governance group unto themselves that have in many ways the equivalent of the governance of a state, governance of a country. And that kind of influence is something that's going to have to be contended with from the point of view of all global societies, and also, of course, affecting places like Hawaii, which I get back to the point about how the corporate structure that's become so extraordinarily powerful, and I mean extraordinarily beyond anything that's previously existed as a company, is going to have an impact on small states like ours, for example, in how governors act, legislators act, and also how our major industry, the tourist industry, is conducted. So thank you for the chance to comment, Vice Chancellor.
Thank you very much, Justice Wilson. And in fact, let me take the same question to Justice Sabrina McKenna. But in addition to that, Justice McKenna, I want also you to reflect on the huge expectations that the society has for lawyers. And there was a point of time when, if you're a lawyer or a judge, you deal with cases relating to criminal law, contract law, basic contractual obligations. But now, with the complex set of expectations surrounding issues relating to environment, climate change, human rights, national security, the role of lawyers and judges have become vastly significant. How does legal education ought to respond to that?
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. You're absolutely right. Legal education and the practice of law has changed substantially since 1982 when I graduated from law school. When I was in law school was much more focused on just the core subjects, but the law schools are now responding to the needs of society. And as you say, law schools are now offering many more courses to deal with issues such as national security or artificial intelligence or technology, and especially climate change and environmental issues. So I'm very glad to see that the law schools are responding, especially schools such as Jindal and my own alma mater, the University of Hawaii William S. Richardson School of Law. The other thing that is happening is that law schools are becoming much more experiential in their learning, in the teaching, and providing clinical courses that really did not exist when I was in law school. So I believe that this trend needs to continue for law schools to address the needs of society.
Thank you very much, Justice McKenna. And that takes me to Ms. Justice Ann Eichen, the Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court, District of Oregon. Justice Eichen, one of the things that many law students are concerned today is that how do they balance their deep-rooted ideological beliefs and values about promoting public interest on the one hand, and also to be able to be participant in the wider economic architecture of governance in various societies where they would like to enter into different jobs, including in the corporate sector. What ought to be the right balance that they can strike when it comes to pursuing their deeply held values on the one side, yet to be successful in the legal profession?
With all due respect, I need to correct the record. I was the presiding judge, the chief judge for 7 years. There's a term limit, and I am emeritus, so I'm no longer the chief judge. First, I want to talk about experiential learning. When I graduated from law school just a little ahead of Justice McKenna, what astounded me was how we really weren't prepared for what our job would be about. And what I would strongly indicate is I think getting students prepared along the lines of what the dean spoke about earlier, and that is to understand that law is a creation of economics, history, political science, politics, and society norms, and to understand those the basic framework. As my husband used to say, he was a constitutional scholar and he taught in political science, that he wanted to give values and an understanding that underpinned the Constitution before they went to law school and were basically taken into a path, because it was a narrow path of what was available. As I moved into law school, I'm a believer, a strong believer, that those skills need to be enhanced. Critical thinking skills need to be enhanced. Students need to understand how to analyze and use multidimensional, disciplined materials and how to bring that material into their work. They need to learn how to communicate, whether it's oral or in writing, and they need to have those basics put in place, and then they need to day in and day out be more like a medical model where they are doing real work with real cases, with real people in different areas of subject, and we should revamp legal education so that we are earning and learning at the same time. One of the advantages I had is I've served in all three branches of government, and I created, when I was a junior in college, one of my projects was to create an internship program for the Oregon legislature, and we did that as a multidisciplinary approach from the University of Oregon so that students were placed with legislators. Laws made in the legislature, so you might as well teach students early on where that's made. I worked in the governor's office for the legal counsel in pardons and commutations, so you understood how the executive branch worked. And then ultimately I ended up on the judiciary, so I have an understanding of all three branches of government. Legal education needs to reinforce those three branches and how the tensions are both about accountability and about protection and the ability for the rights to be protected and looked at from all three vantage points. But ultimately, the courts have the obligation to come down and make the ultimate decisions, again, between the tensions between the majority and the rights that people hold. For students, one thing I would argue, and you might disagree with me, is I really believe that law is about wisdom and experience. So my own children are now lawyers, and every single one of them, I said, go out when you finish school and go do things that are going to be tough and difficult and travel the world or do something that makes you have to get a bigger sense of what a lawyer is about. Then go to law school. Going straight through where they don't have some of that, just the experience of entering into a contract, buying a car, getting a house, negotiating, they don't really understand the magnitude of what the law is really about. And so I really think in many respects we push too hard to move people right through as if it's a task. And I think in many respects it's about giving people experience to have the wisdom, because what we do are problem solvers. Lawyers and judges, there are different venues in which, in different arenas in which we help people solve their problems. Juries are the most talked about, and that's the highest form of it, but from ADR and to problem solving with lawyers or to working it out in mediation, people have to have experience in life to be able to do that. So I think there's a tension between understanding what life is really about and having those experiences, and then being legally trained to use the framework of the law to resolve disputes. And the bottom line is you can't be a good lawyer if you don't take care of yourself, that you understand that it's the practice of law. It's a job about sustainability, and to be sustainable, you have to have a balanced life to remain sustainable and involved.
Thank you very much, Judge Aiken. I entirely agree with you that to be able to appreciate and understand the role of law and legal institutions, one needs to have a certain degree of maturity, but also lived experiences. And we in India have debated about the idea of both the integrated 5-year law program, which starts legal education just after high school on the one hand, and the historically evolved experience of having law taught at the graduate level, like the US's JD program, wherein students would enter, and I did law like that. Most of our judges, the idea of a 5-year integrated program did not start in India till the late 80s, and that debate even now continues. Yeah, please.
Do you mind? Something that I have been a huge advocate for is the technology piece, and I'm neglected to say data analytics, understanding how technology can make the job easier and smarter and faster if we do it well and correctly, and that we are missing opportunities. I could name them, and working with some of the young leaders here in India and seeing what people are able to do with biorhythms and using behavior changes and using the technology to help people change behaviors by in the criminal justice system, to using data analytics to be able to do the research so you have the critical thinking that you apply. We need to do this to move forward so that we really truly are access to justice.
Thank you very much, Judge Aiken. Let me quickly move to Professor Camille Nelson, the Dean of the William S. Richardson School of Law, University of Hawaii. Of course, Dean Nelson, you can hear the pulse of what our judges want law schools to do. The demands and expectations of society is so significant. They want us to have new curriculum. They want us to use technology. They want us to have interdisciplinarity. They want us to have clinical education. They want us to be, international. I just want you to reflect on the fact that are law schools of today capable, prepared to deal with this extraordinary bandwidth of expectations as to what universities and law schools should be doing?
Well, thank you for the question. I think you will, more than anybody, have great empathy for my answer and understanding that it's an aspirational mission to get the alignment of all the constituencies that care deeply about legal education. We've heard some, certainly the judges and justices' voices must carry. Certainly we have accreditation dictates, multiple accreditation dictates. We have alumni, we have friends, we have boards, we have bosses and provosts, presidents, chancellors, and the like. Certainly we have community responsibilities. And crucially, amongst the myriad, I like to call it constellation of concerns, we must also listen to our students, who, after all, are at tuition dependent and driven institutions are a significant, if not the reason that we exist. So, we are trying to find the most overlap and alignment with all those myriad constituencies. And what I would like to emphasize is students and the future students are on the verge of the demographic shifts that are taking place throughout India, throughout the Caribbean, throughout North America, Europe, all over the world, throughout Africa. And I think we have to pay more attention to what they are inheriting that we have left them. They are very concerned about the state of the world, from autocracy to political polarization, to climate degradation, to the criminal legal systems, inequities that pulsate throughout our society. And I think we have to make sure that their voice is heard as a critical feedback loop into what our curriculum looks like, in addition to making sure they have the basic fundamental skills to tackle the myriad problems that pervade society. So I just want to recognize that I agree with everything that has been said, but there are multiple dimensions that are unfolding, and critical to that is also the student needs and the student concerns for their next several decades, hopefully, in the law, and that we have to figure out a way to make sure that they are integral to the evolution of legal education going forward.
Thank you so much, Dean Nelson, and I think I could definitely sympathize with your concerns, because one of the things we're also looking at is that both the profession and indeed the society has huge expectations from what law schools ought to be doing, and we have both internal pressures from both institutional dynamics that will shape the future of legal education. And I take your point about how we need to navigate this extremely complex situation, and we obviously have to hear multiple stakeholders in that navigation. Let me quickly move to Judge Sarah Ellis. She is the judge of the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Illinois. Besides the first question, I would, of course, like you to reflect on the kind of choices that young people, young lawyers are making when it comes to choosing judiciary as an option for them to pursue careers. Because at least in India, it is a fact that when a good lawyer makes a choice to become a judge, he or she is taking a huge pay cut. And it will be very useful for us, for you to reflect a bit on the US context.
So, thank you very much. Yes, there is that tension, right? That when you go into private practice, that you, depending on what you do, you can make a lot of money. And if you become a judge, your choices are different. But I think that people have said it best is that you need to be true to yourself. And that we want to encourage young people, and that's why diversity is so important, is to see themselves on the bench, to see that they can make a life for themselves. And would it be wonderful to, have a second or third house or a beach house somewhere? That would be great. As a judge, that's probably not going to happen. But if we can encourage students in law school to understand that there is so much more to life than all the things that you can accumulate, but rather what's more important is the good that you can do. Being a judge, that job is, I would say, the best in the world, because you can do so much good and really have justice affect more people than you know. If you are, as we talk about in the criminal law context, if you give one person the opportunity to redeem his or herself, that ripple effect will go out and affect the family, affect the community, affect so many people that you don't ever see. So, as a judge, I get to do that every day. And I think that that is one of the highest callings. So while I would love a beach house, I will take what I do.
Thank you so much, Judge Sarah Ellis. And this is, I think, one of the most important aspects of what we don't talk sufficiently in our university, especially when it comes to the informed choices that young people have to make. And I think it's also, to be fair, to say that, in fact, I refer to an amazing book by a Harvard-based political and moral philosopher named Michael Sandel, in his book entitled "What Money Can't Buy: The Moral
Limits of markets. I can argue about the fact that basically we live in a society where anything that we do is measured in monetary terms. The outcome of the society is indirect forms of corruption and indirect forms of violence.
So one of the things that we have a moral obligation to, especially in universities and law school, is to inculcate a deep sense of purpose and public service in it. While having said that, I'm also conscious of the fact that we need young people to be also, be part of corporate careers, to be able to work in law firms, work at private equity firms, investment banks, because the edifice of ethics does not stop at public service. We need lawyers with integrity even in these contexts. So that will take me to Honorable Ms. Justice Jenny Rivera, the Associate Judge of the New York State Court of Appeals, to reflect a bit on this dilemma, but also to talk about the complexity of the cases that have come before judiciary and what kind of training that young lawyers and law school students
Support how so that they're better
prepared to be part of the legal profession.
Thank you so much for the questions, and thank you for the invitation and for being here at this wonderful law school. So, yes, I agree that the question of the ethical obligations of lawyers is one that should be discussed, debated, and explained in law school. Students should begin this journey identifying their professional selves by understanding the professional demands and expectations in terms of the work and the service that they're going to provide to clients. So I agree 100% with that. In New York, we've had a pro bono rule to encourage students to do pro bono work and to get out and do externships and to satisfy requirements for admission. So we've imposed rules for admission so that people early in their career get used to giving back, get used to the idea of being of service, because it is a service profession. You're serving your clients. We also have tried to address some of the experiential training concerns that have already been discussed. We have a rule that requires that you do a certain amount of time through experiential work, which I think is another way for students to fully appreciate the expectations and the demands that they are going to shoulder when they have clients, when they leave law school, right, representing those clients and how to develop that practice. And I think that's one of the ways to try and find a through line through what has been said, that students can meet the expectations of why they went to law school. Most students, if you ask them, as I know that you have, and many of us have, went to law school to help people. They might describe that in some other way, but that's really at the core. They think there's something wrong in the world, they want to be able to be helpful, and they want the training to do that, right? So that's what they're looking to do in law school, and every opportunity in law school that takes them closer to that goal, whether it's learning doctrinally, what is the law, what does it mean, how do I figure out the law, which is what I really think a law school does. I was a law school professor for many years, and what a law school does is teach you how to learn the law. You're going to learn some law, but the skill of knowing how to pick up a book about an area of law that you did not study in law school, that you've never practiced in, and to learn it and to master it, that's what we are training, that critical thought, that ability to do that. So every step of the way where law students get the kinds of tools to make it possible for them to do that, and along the way are representing the kinds of individuals and communities that they envisioned that they would be representing, so that when they graduate, they either do that as their calling, because it is a calling, or they're doing some other kind of work that allows them to also give back to the community financially or through pro bono service. All of that is positive, and I think all of that is the way that students begin to really shape their professional identities, which is the other thing that law school is helping them to do, shape that professional identity. What is it that you're going to be doing when you exit, when you get that JD, when you're taking the bar and you have a client? What is it the day in and day out, the nitty-gritty of being a lawyer? What does that mean, and how do you get comfortable with that role? Lots of students come in, but they want to do the work and they're not always comfortable in the role, because they may be the first in their family to ever be in that role, and they don't necessarily have all of the tools available to them to develop that identity. So that's where law professors, deans, administrators, their alum, can be helpful to them to figure out all of the things that perhaps other students get through the societies and groups that they're already a part of. How to be that lawyer, how to have that identity. So thank you for the question.
Thank you very much, Judge Jenny Rivera. That was very thoughtful, because I think when students get that kind of mentoring at the early stage of their law school education, it'll have a huge and transformative impact on their future. Let me move to Justice Douglas Tukey, Judge of the Oregon Court of Appeals. One of the things that many young students are also thinking about is that to what extent they can actually make that impact in the legal profession, because one of the thing that the big challenge that young people are increasingly thinking about is that today the world has become a very complex place. To what extent lawyers and judges can actually have a social impact is also met by a strong sense of cynicism and skepticism in relation to the role of the power holders. While the vision of law and legal education ought to be to speak truth to power, the question is to what extent they can successfully respond to that challenge. As a judge, how do you think legal educators can prepare young people to make those choices?
Thank you for the question. I think one focus certainly should be a focus on rules of professionalism and remembering you're part of a larger community, whether you're practicing corporate law or you're a public defender. that's a skill set that's going to serve you well wherever you end up. So I think collegiality, professionalism really should be focused on. I think the second thing I would say is that when I went to law school, at least I felt there was a certain way to go to a law firm. And I think a lot of people, we need good lawyers, good corporate lawyers. That wasn't going to be a fit for me. And so I think law schools need to remind people that the people that are there, they're all different, they have different skill sets, and that the key is to get good thinking skills, good writing skills, and that whether you work in the UN, whether you work in the nonprofit, whether you work, in just a government job in an agency that doesn't have any legal component, you can use that skill set. And also just to remember that you're going to be advocating, you're an advocate wherever you are, and that skill set's going to serve you well if you've gotten that basic core skills.
Thank you very much, Judge Douglas Tukey. In fact, this is something which many educators are, conscious of, that to what extent the actual substantive part of legal education does justice to some of these aspects, because sometimes some of these values are not focused during the legal education bit, and many a time law students are not prepared as they enter into the legal profession. So thank you for those reflections. Now I'm going to go to Honorable Justice Todd Edens. Justice Edens, besides the fundamental question that we are trying to answer, I also want you to reflect a bit on the role of interdisciplinarity in legal education. The reason I ask this question is that law schools tend to focus a lot more on the substantive part of law, but in that process, we tend to neglect the role of history, political science, anthropology, sociology, economics, and many other, and philosophy. Arguably, this ought to have happened when students do their undergrad education, but increasingly there is this need for integrating liberal arts, humanities, and social sciences into law. Do you think that this actually makes sense from the standpoint of legal profession?
I do. Thank you, Chancellor. And I think that circles back to some of the comments that we've been talking about as far as real live practical experiences for students. Because when you're dealing with real live people, you're dealing with humanity. And those are the disciplines we're talking about. If you talk about history and philosophy, you're really talking about how people interact with each other. And it's an incredibly valuable experience for soon-to-be lawyers to be in the court. Now, we have rules in Hawaii that allow that, and in fact, Justice McKenna was instrumental in advancing a new rule which allows not only persons who are going to law school, but for example, summer people who have not yet passed the bar to get into court. And what that does, that facilitates access to justice. And when young lawyers or young soon-to-be lawyers are actually having a client right next to them and seeing how they can use their skills to advance the interests of somebody, it really elevates the practice of law that they will be getting into. Because it's not abstract. You're dealing with real live human beings, you're in court, you're actually doing something, and I think that experience really rubs off on the students. And I just want to talk about something else. We're talking about students and legal education, but legal education, this is one profession where we're constantly learning. It's almost by definition, inherently, the legal profession is we are learning something new every day. And whether it's reading a new case or not, no matter what level you are as a lawyer, you are constantly learning, and you have to. We have in Hawaii, we have very extensive judicial education programs. We do it twice a year with every single judge in Hawaii. And it's basically to just keep abreast on new trends, how we should act in court, and all the various other aspects that go into sound judicial lawmaking. Lawyers themselves, we talk about continual legal education. They have to do that. There is programs that are required, including ethics programs. And I really think that it's incredibly important to have continually legal education on ethics matters. And ethics matters really circle back to liberal arts and history and humanity and how people interact with each other. So thank you for having us, Vice Chancellor. It's just a valuable experience for us.
Thank you, Justice Todd Edens, for those reflections. And I think it resonates so well with our contemporary thinking in good law schools around the world as to these things need to be brought to bear in the classroom experience for students. Let me quickly move to Justice Josephine. Justice Josephine is a Josephine Staten is a judge of the U.S. District Court, Central District of California. Besides the fundamental question, I can't help but ask you that you are, of course, in California, the tech capital of the world. Issues surrounding AI, robotics, machine learning, all of them are challenging the way our lives are going to be. In this cacophony of noise surrounding technology taking over all our lives, what do you think will be the role of lawyers? Do you think that a time will come when we can dispense justice with robotics pre-programmed with knowledge of law and cases, and essentially, feeding some data, and justice could be brought out through a printout and can be delivered? Are we going in that direction? And if we are, then what are the safeguards that we need to have, and what kind of thinking that we need to evolve in our law schools?
What a wonderful question. And I wish I knew what the future brought when it comes to technology and the law. I think we're all thinking about that in its initial stages right now. I think the short answer to your question is no, it won't. It won't mean that lawyers are irrelevant. It won't mean that we can have a printout that tells us what the right answer is. And I think we know that by having listened to many of my colleagues speak this morning about the human element of law. And there are aspects of empathy, there are aspects of understanding and perspective. At least at this stage, AI cannot bring that to the law. And until that happens, there will be a role for lawyers. And then, even when AI develops more, technology develops more, the role of lawyers is going to be to figure out how that impacts all of our other rights. So rights to privacy, rights to personal integrity, things like that, there is no law on. And we're going to have the law catch up with technology. And it's always a battle. We're always a little bit behind. So I think that you can assure your students that their jobs will be safe when they come out of law school.
Thank you so much, Judge Josephine Staten, for that. And not only about the fact that their jobs will be safe, but I think you made an even more important point, which is that when all of this happens, it's absolutely critical for lawyers and judges to uphold the deep sense of justice and integrity, and to shape the future of technology in that process, and to ensure that the human interface of technology is intact, and that laws, including issues surrounding privacy and rights and freedoms, are at the heart of the debate surrounding the future of technologies. Thank you so much for those reflections. Let me move to our, next judge, Honorable Justice Andre Birote, judge of the U.S. District Court, Central District of California. You may want to reflect a bit on that, but one of the things I'm keen to hear from you is that how do we ensure the students retain faith in the role of law? Now, I ask this question because of the fact that democracies, both US and India, on numerous occasions, even in our recent history, we have seen violations of the rule of law, even institutionalized forms of, undermining of justice. Under those circumstances, it is easy to become cynical about the role of law. How does one retain the faith in the rule of law amidst a deep sense of, let's say, helplessness about justice?
Well, it's a great question, and thank you for having us all here. I think part of it is really just by doing good, solid work. And I don't envy your position and Camille's position as deans of law school, because in many ways, you guard against the cynicism and ensure and instill in that next generation that there is a reason why we need you, whether it's through the experiential learning and being nimble and adapting to the needs of society and our community. I mean, I think about, we talked about AI, social justice issues. I don't think any dean necessarily woke up one day and said, oh, I think social justice is going to be the issue of the day, or AI is going to be the issue right now. These things come, law schools have to adapt, lawyers have to adapt, judges have to adapt. And my hope is that as we have been responsive as best we can, it will reduce that cynicism. It is there, there's no question about it, but I think that renewed faith and inspiration that I think really law schools provide, I think as a foundation, really help things out. And it is, at least in my view, it's inspiring to see the work that people like yourself and you, Camille, in Hawaii are doing that gives me at least confidence that legal education is in good hands.
Thank you so much, Judge Andre, for that. We are, of course, moving into the end of this program. I just want to now, ask our distinguished guests here briefly reflect about their visit to OP Jindal Global University, Jindal Global Law School. I must say that some years ago, we started this amazing externship program at the Supreme Court of Hawaii, and now every year, 4 to 5 of our students go there, and I must say that their lives have changed. The opportunity to be an extern at a leading university law school as well as a part of the court at the Supreme Court of Hawaii has enabled them to engage with another jurisdiction. And I have spoken to multiple batches of students who have gone through, and they've been deeply grateful. So I just want to take this moment to thank our friends from the Supreme Court of Hawaii to institutionalize the program, and I can only hope that more and more students are having this opportunity. So with those words, as we come to the end of this program, I'm going to request our colleagues to quickly reflect on their visit to OP Jindal Global University, Jindal Global Law School. We can start from Michael and go around this line.
Well, thank you, Raj. I mean, it's a question that's exciting for me to answer since Jindal has become part of my life, and this is the 6th time, I think, I've been here. So I've seen it grow into an institution. It's now the highest rated law school in India. And why? So I'll conclude by using the word integrity, using the word character. All of these judges represent the most powerful application of the rule of law possible. And that's based on using an honest approach to the facts and the law and having the courage to be independent. Well, that's what Jindal stands for, and that's why it's exciting to be here. The motto is anyways. In other words, you do the right thing regardless of the consequences if you're going to exercise the power of the rule of law. And in so doing, I think that there's been a collection of people, the students, who reflect integrity and hard work, faculty that also have a high standard in terms of not giving up in terms of corruption and assuming that your country's corrupt, or giving up in terms of the social issues that become so pressing and that something can't be done. There's hope, there's courage, and there's integrity. And so that's why it's a great place to visit. So thank you for having us here, Raj.
Yeah. Thank you. Vice Chancellor Kumar, this has been beyond a wild dream to be here, and what was told to me by my dear friend here, Wilson, didn't begin to cover the breadth and enormity of what you've accomplished. So to be around somebody who has the vision that you've had and what you've been able to accomplish in 14 years, the magnificent opportunities for investing in legal education and education generally to grow the next generation of leaders of India, this is a remarkable accomplishment, and I'm going back with an enormous hope and belief in what's possible. But I would tell you the only constant in life is change, and we have to be better about understanding that. And the legal profession, change is a very hard word for us, but we have to be moving forward, and we have to be thinking of the balancing of all the equities, all the dignities, all the humanity, all the technology, all the changes in the way in which the world is operating. And the only way we can do that is getting outside of our comfort zone and traveling and meeting with other people and sharing those experiences and building that common global world. It is a global world. We just refuse to acknowledge it when it's really right in front of us. And if we come together as a global community and we have integrity, we have the idea that it's about public service, it's about leaving the generations better off, it's about legal leadership, and our job has to be to empower the next generation of legal leaders. What you've encompassed here is something that you can be incredibly proud of, and we can go back and try to emulate in other ways. My husband a long time ago told me, Anne, you're going from the federal, if you're going to the state court to the federal court, the federal courts were designed to protect the status quo. That's not who you are. You're about change, and you're about the opportunities for disruption and taking the next steps so that everybody has the opportunities. And I bridle when you look and it's not, the fairness is not there. Underpinning everything has to be that sense of fairness, humanity, dignity, and giving everybody their best opportunity to succeed in life. That's what you're doing here. It's remarkable, and what you're sending all of us back with that kind of mission to continue to build this relationship. And so, what a privilege. Thank you.
Well, I just first want to echo my thanks. It's been fantastic to be here and see what you have built and grown. And what really touched me was the types of questions that your students asked. They were very thoughtful. They showed critical thinking. They showed a commitment and passion for justice. And they showed that they weren't afraid to ask hard questions, which is what we want lawyers to do. So the fact that we were able to see that shows that you are doing a great job helping these students flourish and helping them discover their own strengths and passions that will make them excellent lawyers in the future. So you are to be congratulated.
So Dr. Kumar, I'll just say, yeah, overwhelming, amazing, just exhilarating to be here, and I'm so thankful to have had the opportunity. I mean, you can be so proud of what you've done as a leader here. I agree with Judge Ellis that the students were so thoughtful, and it was a real privilege to have that experience. And for me, it's been exhilarating and refreshing and energizing. So I'm real thankful to have been here.
Well, I can only echo the sentiments of those who've gone before me. It is clear that you've provided the kind of leadership in this school that is going to really ensure that it remains one of the best legal institutions in this country and in the world. I can tell just from my brief experience here that you are searching for the right answers, the right approach, the best way to train the students, educate them, serve the community. That kind of searching is really what is going to take you to even the next level.
Thank you. This is my 5th trip since 2016, and I just continue to marvel at how much you have done, but continue to do and continue to grow. And I'm really privileged that we have this externship program where we have Jindal law students come. And some of my first batches of students have gone on to fantastic careers here in India and throughout the world. And you're creating amazing lawyers and leaders of the future. And I hope to see this program continue not just in our school, in our court, but I hope that other courts, including the judges here, would consider hosting some of your students to their courts, because this is an excellent program. You are producing great lawyers, and it is your vision that has done so, and I know you will continue to grow with the needs of the community.
I echo my immense gratitude to you. This has been a fabulous experience already, and it's my first trip to India. I want to underscore something that situates this epic vision that you've basically activated as crucial to democracy. In the United States presently, I came across a statistic that is backed up by abundant research indicating that fewer and fewer Americans are pursuing higher education. That bodes ill for the future of democracy. at a time when those of us from places that were formerly referred to as the developing world or the global south are doubling down on the power of education. And I think this institution speaks to that. So I want to commend you, and I also want to commend your benefactors and those who support this institution, because it's a critical tipping point internationally when we witness the type of underfunding, under-recognition, lack of support, and lack of buy-in for what many consider the most powerful and important democracy in the world. And so there will be an emergence of other important and crucial democracies in the world as you continue to invest in education. And I think people from Jindal will lead. And it's up to us in other places as well to also learn from you and from the leaders in India. This is very much has to be a reciprocal conversation, because education is a human right and it should be part of our infrastructure. So I say kudos to you on achieving this vision. Kudos to those who have supported your vision. It is crucial, and I very much look forward to our ongoing conversations and to continuing to learn from you, your colleagues, your students, and your friends. Thank you.
Thank you. I too say thank you. It's been a wonderful experience. I had hoped that this would be a tremendous opportunity for an exchange of ideas at the highest level, and it has not disappointed, so thank you for that. And I have to say, it is really wonderful to be in a space that nurtures intellectual curiosity, that advances the interests of students and faculty and administrators, everyone who works here. Their interest in how to make the world a better place, their interest in how to resolve the problems that are both local, domestic, regional, and international, because that's what we need, that kind of community that sees themselves connected to their neighbor right next door, but to their neighbor across many, many ponds and many oceans. So it's wonderful to be in that kind of a space where people are engaging in that kind of discourse. And I do see this as only the first trip to continue to have those kinds of dialogues, because you've raised some very serious problems and questions that we are going to have to continue to answer in the legal profession, both the bench and the bar, and here, as I hope in our own country, we are about the business of getting that done before it is too late, not only on the issue of climate change, but on so many other issues that really speak to equity and equality and access to justice. So thank you for that very hard work that you're doing. Thank you.
Well, as with my prior visit, it seems like every hour there's a new highlight and a new delight. And I've only been here now 24 hours or so. And I get out of the symposium that we just had, and there was a delight. It was one of my externs, Mahek. Now, Mahek wasn't one of the summer externs that we happen to have every year that have been beautiful. She was getting her LLM at UCLA, and she just happened, to apply for an externship. And once I saw Jindal on there, I was like, you know what? She is well prepared. She's in. And I interview her, and it perfectly came across as I expected. And she was with me not just one semester, but two, because she was so good, and we enjoyed having her so much, and she liked experiencing what we had to offer there. And so it was beautiful to come out of the symposium, and now she's a professor here. And that really just made my day. We had pictures together. I texted my JA, and she was so excited, to see Mahek here. And, and that's part of what I like about this job is, just the young, energetic people that we can help along the way. And, it's just what you've done with this school in 15 years is just absolutely incredible. I don't think it's ever been done throughout the world. So I credit you, and the people that are coming out of here are just so, so wonderful and well prepared.
Again, thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. It's been overwhelming, inspiring, all of those things. I think about this one poet that I read that said, all the youth want is an opportunity. And my sense, just from my short time here, is that you're giving this youth an opportunity to lay a positive imprint not only in India, but throughout the world. And that's something that you should be commended for. And I wish you continued success. And I look forward to continuing dialogue about this and many other issues going forward. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm, of course, truly humbled by all those, wonderful reflections. But I want to begin by saying that it was Paulo Coelho in Alchemist who said that if you really want something, the entire world will conspire to make it happen. And this story of O.P. Jindal Global University was one such story. Besides the fact that I had this dream of building a university, I got to meet with an amazing man by name Naveen Jindal, a very distinguished steel tycoon and a very distinguished industrialist. He was also at that time member of parliament. I got to meet him and engage with him. And within a year, he committed to three things, which I think laid the foundations of this university, which is A, to make a commitment towards putting in substantial financial resources. Second, to do it in a not-for-profit manner. And third, to ensure academic freedom and autonomy and independence to build a world-class university with the world-class law school to begin with. We started off in 2009 in a very modest manner with only 100 students and 10 faculty members and 20 administrative staff. And today, as we move into the 15th year, we have 10,000 plus students, 1,200 plus full-time faculty, 1,000 plus admin staff, and the students come from 70 countries in the world. The faculty come from 53 countries in the world, and we are indeed now well positioned to not only be India's first-ranked private university, but our law school has been ranked first both in public and private. This could not have been possible but for the extraordinary vision and commitment of our founding chancellor and benefactor, Mr. Jindal, but also the collective imagination of our faculty members, students, staff, alumni, and of course the parents of our students who made their commitment and trust and belief in a new institution that was just beginning to be established. I keep telling my chancellor, benefactor, Mr. Jindal, that he, I believe very strongly, is the Andrew Carnegie of India. Andrew Carnegie was, at the last century, was world's most important influential steel tycoon. He made his big money through steel, just as Mr. Jindal. But today, most people in the world remember Andrew Carnegie for his contribution to philanthropy and institution building. Mr. Jindal is one such person. So I want to end by paying tribute to him, but also to thank all of you for being part of that kindred spirit, to be part of that, what Paulo Coelho talked about, the world conspiring to do something good and to be able to inspire our students and to be here in India. Thank you very much for this conversation. The program is ended. Thank you.